This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phil and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to break down the very beginning of the season for the Baltimore Orioles and the Norfolk Tides, as both teams got underway last week. After dropping Wednesday night's contest to the Boston Red Sox, the Orioles, sitting with a .500 record at 3-3, they've yet to win two straight games, but they've also yet to lose two straight games. And so far, we've kind of seen a little bit of everything. We got a great start from Zach Eflin at the beginning of the season. A lot of runs have been scored in the Orioles, 3 wins. And in the 3 losses, we had one fairly high-scoring affair that ended in defeat for the Orioles, and 2 games where the bats were kind of quiet. So we'll break a little bit of that down before we get into the Norfolk Tides, and then we'll wrap up with a discussion about Gunnar Henderson, who could be joining the team later this week. But starting with the major leagues, Bob, what have your thoughts about the Orioles been so far through 6 games?
Yeah, like you said, it's been a tale of 2 cities or two different teams. It seems like whenever Jorge Mateo's in the lineup, things haven't gone as well. I think it's just partly coincidence, partly because he's a black hole in the lineup. But yeah, we've either scored 10 runs or more or kind of fallen flat. Starting pitching, John Muley had a nice article about the starting pitching that was pretty much you can make of it whatever you want, because the ERA was terrible, the innings per start not great, but then the FIP and XFIP was way better. So it's so early in the season. There's really not much you can take away from it other than hopefully you keep putting in the runs and coming away with some wins until you can kind of settle in. I know Sugano was out with hand cramps from sweating so much. That's not a great sign when it's early April, late March when it happened. But yeah, got to get Gunnar Henderson back. Got to settle in. It's easy to forget that in 2023, I think we started out like 5-6 or something along those lines the first few weeks. So, I mean, I've been happy. It's been fun. The big games they showed up for the very first game of the season and then the home opener. So I'm just glad baseball's back and we get to argue about it for the next 6 months.
Yeah, this is like it's going to be like this all season. Like it is going to be a night by night war in this AL East division, and I think that we kind of touched on this with Connor when we did the prediction episode. And it's like this Yankees lineup is mashing right now. It is a very good team, even with their injuries, and we know they're one injury in that lineup away. If Judge goes down, could the rest of the lineup tumble? But right now, that lineup is clicking on all cylinders. The Blue Jays are going to be scrappy. This Red Sox team is very good. Very, very good. The Rays are off to a great start. This is going to be a tough division. It's going to be a dogfight. And so it's just game by game. That's the only way I'm looking at this. And I've enjoyed this so far. Yeah, there's been some not so great moments. And some guys still in the roster right now that we wish weren't there. Pitching, of course, could be better. But, just taking this game by game, I've enjoyed having baseball that matters back, to be honest. So, yeah, we'll dive into what we like and what we don't like here in the very beginning. But overall, this is it's going to be a war. And it's going to be who's going to win the battle of attrition. We'll see who comes out on top of this. But it is not going to be easy this year in the AL East.
No, it's not. And we've seen a good reminder of that early on in the season. So first off, the Orioles get 7 straight games against American League East foes and the Blue Jays and the Red Sox that are running the gauntlet early in the season in that sense. And we've seen the injuries pile up. Gunnar Henderson got hurt in spring training. Colton Cowser gets hurt a few games into the season. He's going to be out a couple of months. So far, we've seen where some guys that you kind of viewed as depth pieces that were not going to be part of this team early in the season or not have to play a big part in this team early in the season, like Dylan Carlson and Jorge Mateo, now getting a little bit more game opportunity than you might think. And with Henderson possibly coming back this week, it seems like one of those two guys is going to go, but we'll have to see where that leads. I will say this for a positive, is that the offense is back in the mode it was in 2023 and the beginning of 2024. On the nights where they're clicking, they can come up with a big inning late to put away an opponent. They did that in both of their wins in Toronto. They did that in the home opener, and that really takes the burden off the bullpen. And yeah, the starting pitching's got to get better. I'm not going to deny that. It's not going to be sustainable to win 9-5 games night in and night out. But if you want to look for a sign that the offense might be clicking, it's that. It's that they're able to pile up these runs early. And I have to say, Jordan Westburg looks very good right now. Jackson Holliday, I think, looks much better at the plate than he did a year at the end of last season. So there are some encouraging developments in the lineup, even without Henderson there.
Yeah, I mean, that Jackson Holliday home run, was it like 108 to the opposite field gap, was pretty spectacular. Also was a great sign when he was able to handle 97 above the strike zone and just smack it over second baseman's head for a single. So yeah, definitely love what Jackson Holliday's shown so far. And the bullpen, speaking of, I think has looked pretty good. I want to shout out a couple guys in particular. Brian Baker, my goodness, I think it's Bacon season in Baltimore because the guy looks great. I guess all he had to do was change his grip on his changeup, and all of a sudden he's dotting fastballs on the corners. The changeup really does look nice. Gregory Soto, I think he looks electric out there, other than when he pitched back-to-back, which I thought was an interesting call this early in the season. Sir Anthony Dominguez proving that spring training numbers still meaningless, and Felix Bautista got back out there. Didn't get a save, I don't think, but he had a scoreless appearance in Toronto, striking out the side, and then struggled through a rough inning. But it's good to see him back out there, and getting that Adley hug on the home opener was cool.
Yeah, a lot of talk early on, a lot of comments on shows before the season started. Whenever we would try to be positive about this bullpen, people trying to bring the mood down about this bullpen, and they're performing extremely well so far. You mentioned Baker. I know he just pitched tonight, so we didn't have time to look up new numbers or anything, but Brian Baker had a 116 stuff plus on his fastball in that first outing, and the changeup and slider were 110. Like, phenomenal stuff from Baker. Matt Bowman stepping up. Love seeing that. He had a really good outing in Norfolk on their opening night and then got the call up to the major leagues. He's performed well so far. So really, outside of Ciano Perez, this bullpen's been really fun to watch, especially Gregory Soto. I've greatly enjoyed watching him. But, even Bautista's outing the other day, like, that's the home opener. Like, that was electric. You can tell. I'm sure that was an emotional outing for him. I'm glad they had that big lead and they were let him just shake all that out, because the outing at Toronto was one thing. It's not in front of the home crowd, where clearly he loves Orioles fans. Orioles fans clearly love him. And so I'm sure that was a tough outing for him to get back out there on the mound, but he got through it. And so now Felix Bautista is going to be, Felix Bautista as he continues to warm up. So yeah, the bullpen, you could sit here and say like, oh, well, the starters got to go deeper and they're going to, this bullpen's going to fall apart eventually. No, for right now, they're cooking, they're baking. Like, we're having a good time with this bullpen. I'm enjoying it.
And just so I don't leave him out, Yunier Cano also, I thought has looked really good. He's only pitched in 2 games, but 3 strikeouts. Don't think he's given up a hit or a walk. So
if your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And let's go to Norfolk now. They've had a little bit of turnover since their season began on Friday with a loss against Durham. As you guys just touched on, Matt Bowman actually started the season with the Tides and was brought up. Dylan Carlson was with Norfolk initially and then has had to join the majors to fill in for Colton Cowser. And you look at the Tides record as of right now, as we're recording this on Wednesday night, they're sitting at 1-3, although they're up 2-1 against Charlotte in the top of the 8th as I speak. So it might be 2-3 by the end of the night. For the most part, a lot of the conversation around the Tides has been Gunnar Henderson's highlight reel home run off a light pole in Charlotte. That was very impressive. But for the players that are going to be staying in Norfolk, we've seen some highlights so far this season. And Nick, I'm going to start with you on Kyle Bronovich, because you wrote up a piece over on our Substack about his outing on Tuesday night against Charlotte. And just to give a little bit of background, Bronovich, before he had Tommy John surgery, was a guy who typically sat low 90s as his fastball, had to have his knuckle curve working effectively to really generate swings and misses. Last year, his first season back from Tommy John surgery, the stuff looked kind of the same, but you dug into the data on his start Tuesday night and saw something much different.
Much different. I mean, I think he had the velo last year when he was back in Bowie, but we don't have access to a lot of that good data when they're in AA or below. So it's been a lot of fun seeing these guys pitch in the AAA level so far, and we can really dive in. And yeah, like I don't care about a minor league team's record at all. I think they are completely irrelevant. All I'm concerned about are these individual performances, and the guys that matter are stepping up and performing well. And there are a couple of bats that we can talk about too, but it's not as bad as it looks on the surface with those guys. But with Bronovich, yeah, it was. Let me pull it down here. This was low velo. I mean, by the time before surgery, when you watch a Kyle Bronovich outing, you see that velo dip into the upper 80s by like the fourth, fifth inning. Obviously, that's not going to cut it. But now he's sitting 93 to 94. He's touching 96 miles per hour. He was up to 95.5 in that outing on Tuesday nights. He's up to 18 plus inches of induced vertical break on the fastball with 7 feet of extension. So like, and you saw that. And this Charlotte team is no longer like the laughing stock that, remember last year when Norfolk exploded for like 20 something runs a game in that opening series against Charlotte. This Charlotte team is much better. You got guys like Greg Jones. I don't even have the roster in front of me right now. It's a much better lineup. And Bronovich carved through him. Like 7 strikeouts across 4 innings pitched, just 1 hit or 1 walk, 14 whiffs. Like he looked really, really good. And it's just been weird because I didn't know what to think about Bronovich or what the organization thought about him, because he didn't get back to AAA last year, even though he was in AAA before Tommy John surgery. He doesn't get back last year. They just kept him in AA. So it's like if they kind of passed him over, but now like this isn't a guy who, like, the fastball at a 103 or 106 stuff plus on Tuesday night. Like the fastball is one of his strengths now, which is a pretty good sign for him.
Yeah, just to help you prove your point about the Charlotte lineup, I have it pulled up here. Greg Jones, Mike Talkman, Oscar Colas, Chase Meredith, Edgar Caro, Kyle Teal, Colson Montgomery, Bobby Dalbach, even from former Red Sox. So yeah, definitely a different look from the Charlotte Knights this season. And Cameron Weston pitched pretty good tonight too, by the way. 4 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, only gave up a solo home run. But yeah, Bronovich, he looks really, really good. And yeah, he looks like a completely different pitcher than he was when he first came over in that trade, where it was like, lower 90s fastball with a great curveball. Now it seems like he's going more slider heavy over the curveball, at least very early on. Slider, I think, had 44% whiff rate, which pretty darn good. I could see why you might want to go to it if you've developed something like that. So yeah, with the increased velocity, the new slider, and if he can still go back to his bread and butter every once in a while with that curveball, then yeah, he might have something. Might go back to where he thought it could be pre-surgery, where it was like a back end starter or at least a decent reliever. So love to see it, even if it's to work out a trade where he can get an opportunity somewhere else. I just love that in this day and age. That's like my favorite part of baseball right now, is that you're never too old to develop a pitcher. You can just struggle and struggle and struggle, and then you learn a pitch or two or make a tweak in your sequencing, and all of a sudden you are back in the game. Like, this is a completely different pitcher than Kyle Bronovich was a couple of years ago, but here he is knocking on the door once more.
Bronovich's 14 swings and misses on Tuesday night, by the way, were tied for 3rd in all of AAA. And Bob, I'm glad that you mentioned Cameron Weston, because that's where I was going to go next. He touched 95 a couple of times, or one time officially 95, but 94.8, 94.7, 94.6 on a few pitches. So we want to round that up. We could say that Weston hit 95 5 times on his start on Wednesday night, What we know about Weston from following him the last few years is that he's got a deep repertoire, locates it pretty well. Velocity has not necessarily been his strength, at least in the scouting reports. I'm wondering, is this a case where maybe the velocity has started to tick up a little bit and we're just now seeing it? Or is this a more recent development that we're finally seeing Weston start to add a couple miles per hour to that fastball? Either way, though, his stuff looks very good on Wednesday.
Yeah, just 3 hard hit balls allowed in this one. The one hit was a home run, but it was a first inning home run. Shake the nerves off. First AAA appearance. A lot of swing and miss there. This looked really good for Weston. I think there were reports last year of the increased velo because he was finally healthy for the first time last year. Last year was the first full year we got from Cameron Weston where he was healthy the entire year, and you see how good he was. He was in the conversation there, I think, for Orioles minor league pitcher of the year. And so to come out tonight here against this good Charlotte team and pitch like he did, that was promising as well. It's we're going to talk about the traffic jam of pitchers in the minor leagues with these minor league rosters. And so you haven't seen a lot of the bigger prospects kind of sneak their way through into Norfolk, but Cameron Weston did, and he showed up on night one. So good to see there. And other pitchers as well. The other night against Durham, Justin Armbruster pitched well, 2 2/3 scoreless with 4 strikeouts. Fastball had a 111 stuff plus. Carlos Tavera was showcasing his stuff with 1 1/3 scoreless innings. And we got our first look at Raul Alcantara on the mound. He did walk 4 in 3 innings, but he struck out 7 and allowed just 1 hit. Heavy slider usage there. It's been a lot of fun watching these Norfolk guys start off the year on the mound.
Yeah, and Armbruster tonight, 2 more innings with scoreless with 3 strikeouts. So much better start to his year than 2024, to say the least. And
bullpen roll.
Yeah, looks pretty good in that role. Weston, speaking of whiffs, like when we were talking with Branovich, his slider, Weston's had a 45% whiff rate as well, 35% altogether with all his pitches. Mix it up pretty evenly between sinker, slider, changeup. 40% sinker, 30% slider, 30% changeup. That's what he's going to do. And he's got more pitches in the bag than those 3. We know that. So, he's just going to junk it up there, mix things up. And it's not even junk when it's coming at you 95 miles per hour at this point. So, love what we're seeing from the pitching on the AAA level so far, for sure. Alcantara, that was even if he ends up going back to the relief role, it's just cool that they're building him up a little bit, see what you got. But bare minimum, the guy can obviously miss bats.
And we didn't even mention Brandon Young through this. The top arm here. 6 innings, 7 hits, all singles though, except there's 1 double, no runs, no earned runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, topped out at 96. Brandon Young was looking very Brandon Young-esque in that his first start.
Yep, average 94, touch 96, all around the zone with all of his pitches. I think he's pretty much just waiting and ready for his major league debut at this point.
Exactly. And I'll go over the offense now. And Nick, I'll go back to you to start off, because I think you had a nice summary earlier, which is that if you look at the pure stat line for a lot of the top prospects that are in the Tides lineup, the results so far aren't pretty, but there's probably more than what meets the eye there.
Yeah, I mean, Jud Fabian is doing Jud Fabian things. Nothing's really changed there. But with Kobe Mayo and Samuel Basayo, obviously the 2 other the 2 top prospects in this lineup, Mayo was that Saturday or Sunday, he broke through and had 3 hits. A home run at 102 miles per hour, 113 mile an hour line out. That was the hardest hit ball in AAA. Orioles have had, in 2 of the first 3 days of the season, Samuel Basayo had 115.1 mile per hour line out on opening night. Mayo followed it up 2 days later with the hardest hit ball in AAA himself. But he had 3 hard hit balls in that game, and the 4th was at 94.9 miles per hour. So you can round that up and give him 4 hard hit balls as well. He's running a BABIP of 200 right now. He's hitting the ball extremely hard and making a ton of contact. He did strike out twice tonight, as I'm looking at the box score right now. But going into this, he was making a ton of contact and hitting the ball incredibly hard, just right at defenders. And kind of the same thing for Samuel Basayo, who is running a 125 BABIP. Same thing, hitting the ball incredibly hard. And the bigger thing with Samuel Basayo was, I don't see any injury concern there. It's defensively, sure, keep him there. You're not going to see him behind the plate for a while. May not even see him at first base for a little bit, but just the bat, which is what I think is most important right now, keep that bat hot. He's performing well. He's hitting the ball hard without really any concern for the injury there. So those two guys, yeah, it's there. It's just not falling for them so far.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you're just scouting the stat line and you're just like, oh man, it sucks. Basayo and Mayo, the two guys, got off to this slow start. But if you're watching the games, like Nick said, they're hitting the ball hard, they're making contact. I think Basayo had a great at bat where it was like double digit pitches in, and then he eventually strikes out. But even when they're making contact, they're hitting it hard. The BABIPs are low. It's less than a week into the season, so you just got to give it time for everything to equalize. And Fabian started out 0 for 9 and then comes out, hits a bomb, takes a walk. I think he has a hit tonight, or he did have another hit. So Beavers is the one that's a little worrying to me. I think he's struck out like 70% of his plate appearances or close to it. So obviously, I mean, that's not sustainable for anyone, not even Joe Fabian. So that's going to come down. But again, it's Fabian and especially Beavers. It's like their first taste of AAA for the most part, other than a little bit last year. So yeah, it's not the exciting offense that we saw the last few years, but there's definitely some highlights in there. Vimal the machine is still doing machine-like things in AAA, and Dylan Carlson got off to a good start. And hey, he was signed for depth, and he's up in the Orioles now once Kowser broke his finger.
I was just thinking back on last year. Samuel Basayo, as you guys might remember, had an injury flare up either in the offseason or in camp. That kind of a similar situation as this year. He didn't catch for the first month or so of the season. And his bat got off to a really slow start at Bowie. And I remember us having an episode a couple weeks into the season where we were talking about how Basayo was not walking. And that, if you're going to look for something that was a concern, that could be an issue. And I just went back and looked it up. Basayo did not draw a walk in the first 14 games last year at Bowie. He's already drawn 2 this season with Norfolk, including one that he picked up on Wednesday night. He's not really striking out at a rate that's, astronomical or bad. So the walk to strikeout numbers are there. He's hitting the ball hard. I think everything's going to be fine. And the home run that he hit on Saturday is the kind of home run you rarely ever see at Harbor Park. And Nick, I'm sure you have much better background on that than I do, but for a left-handed hitter to hit one out to the left field party deck in early season games especially, it has to be pretty rare.
I thought it was a pop-up, but it just kept traveling because he was able to muscle that thing into the picnic area. And it's like, only Samuel Basayo is going to do that here in late March, early April. Yeah, that was a beautiful shot. Like I said, the injury's not a concern there, and it's clearly not affecting him mentally either. I could see a guy like Basayo. We know how passionate he is, we'll say. I could see where he has this incredible spring training, and he knows he needs to work on the defense. They've been drilling him defensively, and now he's got to stop for a month, maybe more. And so I'm sure that's for a young kid like Basayo, who is passionate as he is, I'm sure that's taking a toll on him mentally, but he's not letting it affect him at the plate. And that's a good sign for me. Like if we're a week into the AAA season, and if you're looking for small things to pick up on as big victories, I take that as a pretty big victory for Samuel Basayo.
And with that, now we will go into our final segment, which is, of course, Last Call, brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is not too far from Oriole Park at Camden Yards, making it a great place to have a pre- or post-game drink. And when you're at the game, you can get Bird is a Word, one of the Checker Spot signature beers from the concession stands at Camden Yards. Look for the Bird is a Word behind home plate whenever you go to Oriole Park at Camden Yards this season. As I mentioned, Checker Spot located close enough to Camden Yards to be a good pregame and postgame destination. They are also open 7 days a week, so be sure to check them out. And in this final segment, I'm going to throw out this question here, which is that Gunnar Henderson, after an early season IL stint, all signs point to him coming back as soon as Thursday, which would be the minimum stint for him on the IL. Now, we're recording this before Thursday, so by the time you're listening to this, that news might have already broken. But let's say we see Henderson by Friday's series opener against the Royals. What are the chances that Henderson can mount a strong enough season with the remaining time he has left, assuming there are no other IL stints, to mount a case for American League MVP? So is this something for you guys to think about? I'll start with Bob on this.
I don't see why his odds should be limited much at all. I mean, he does not seem to be missing a beat down in AAA Norfolk. Obviously, it's not the same level of competition as in the major leagues, but a couple of home runs, like we talked about. That second one was just insane. 112 off the bat. 401 seemed a little further than that, but I mean, I guess telephone pole got in the way. But yeah, I think he's looked impressive. Made a diving catch tonight as we're recording this. So seems like the oblique is fine. I think he's going to be better than last year. Maybe you have to tick down the WAR a little bit just because of the missed time, but I still give him a good chance. I think he's going to go off and he's going to be extra motivated just because of the late start, to be honest with you.
He's not going to be able to win the MVP when you've got the new legendary superstar Andres Jimenez battling out up there north of the border in Toronto. I think he had another big night tonight, or maybe it was last night. I don't know, but Jesus Christ, man. Gunnar Henderson is going to change this lineup for the better when he returns. That's not a hot take, obviously. This Orioles offense is clicking for the most part. Yeah, they're stumbling a little bit, but they're having, more often than not, this offense has been clicking, and now they still get to add a potential MVP candidate here in Gunnar Henderson. Hopefully the rain came Wednesday night here before we started recording, and they did take Gunnar Henderson out of the game and replace him with TT Bowen. So maybe we're hoping that they said, go ahead and you're not going to wait out this rain delay and finish this game. Go ahead and get on the plane. And
early
so
flight
you
to Baltimore.
Yeah, so you can get to Baltimore for the afternoon game. We will see. But if not, he's going to be in the lineup on Friday. We know that for sure. So he missed a week. It's not that long. Gunnar Henderson, I do agree. We've talked about this a lot. There are areas of his game that he can improve on to make him a more impactful player, which is hard to believe. But he's still so incredibly young that we are going to see a better version of Gunnar Henderson this year. And he's showing it already. Like, yeah, he didn't get a spring training. He played, 2-3 games of spring training. He didn't have that. And yes, it's AAA pitching, but the bat's been pretty impressive so far. So I think he's going to pick up right where he left off here when he gets up to Baltimore, hopefully in a couple hours.
Yeah, I went back and looked this up. You don't have to go that far back into MVP history to find a player who won it over a relatively small sample size. Mike Trout played in just 134 games in 2019, which now feels like Mike Trout playing a full season, and won American League MVP. Trout, of course, was very good that year, had a 7.8 F-WAR in that span. It was also maybe a relatively weak MVP field surrounding Trout, but that gives you an example of how a guy who didn't play on a team that went to the playoffs was able to win MVP despite missing more than 20 games, more than 25 games, actually. So when you look at Henderson's case, I stand by something that I said in one of our episodes, probably a mailbag a couple months ago, that I think if the Orioles win the division, Gunnar Henderson's going to win American League MVP. And now you would have the narrative built in that, well, look at the Orioles. They were only 3-3 or 3-4 or 4-3, whatever, when Henderson was out. And then all of a sudden they went on a tear and they won the American League East. Gunnar Henderson wins. That could very easily happen. I will say, though, that I think it's going to be a strong field again, especially if Aaron Judge is healthy. So I'm not counting on it. But if you thought coming into the year, or you predicted that coming into the season that Gunnar Henderson was going to win American League MVP, don't budge from that now.
Now is when you put the money on it, because you know the odds are going to be a lot lower. Now is when you put the money on the Gunnar MVP bet.
And with that, that does it for this episode. We'll be back later this week to break down the break camp rosters for the Chesapeake Bay Sox, the Aberdeen Ironbirds, and the Delmarva Shorebirds. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, Orioles on the Verge, Substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to our Patreon community and check out the perks that we have there for our paying subscribers, including bonus weekly episodes, monthly updates to our top 50, and much more. And in fact, if you subscribe to our podcast feed, even if you are not a patron, right now you can listen to a preview of the new weekly bonus show that we are going to do for patrons this season. Check that out on the podcast feed, and then come over to Patreon so that you can get an episode just like that each week without ads from us. From Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.